Welcome everybody to episode 2 of Digi and May's Pokemon Journey.
Ooh.
We just watched Pokemon, the movie 2000.
Yeah, Journey Through the Orange Islands.
Yeah, The Power of One
Oh.
is the subtitle of the film. So just like with the last podcast, I guess we'll go through sort of in order. I guess we'll start with our... You know, we didn't really talk much about, like, our history with the first movie, I guess because it's kind of self-evident. We watched it as kids a bunch of times.
Went to the theaters multiple times to see it. How many times did you see it?
I think only once. My family did not go to the theaters much. We were not a big theater-going family.
I may have saw it twice. Not more than twice. Because I had a lot of the Mew promo cards. Like, way too many to have seen it once.
I had a lot of those because of Pokemon League. Because we would get those... like all the time. That promo card was given out like candy compared to other promo cards.
I think I had like 5 or 6 copies of it, which makes me want to say I've seen it twice.
Yeah. But so Pokemon 2000 I also saw in theaters.
Yes.
And I think had it on, I think I had the first 2 on either VHS or DVD.
I definitely had 2000 on VHS because I distinctly remember.
Yeah, my family didn't have a DVD player till later, I don't think. So probably VHS. But yeah, these 2 movies particularly I've seen a lot, and the third one I've seen like probably 5 times, but like the first 2 I've probably seen like 10.
I haven't seen the second one that many times. Like I think I've only seen it 4 or 5 times, including the 2 times. No, I only saw it in theater once.
This was my favorite of the Pokemon movies growing up, and rewatching it, I think the reasons for that are obvious. Because this is a better movie than the first movie. In spite of the fact that I would say the first one had a lot more thematic depth. Like, the first one clearly had something to say. It was sort of about, like, I mean, Mewtwo's backstory was heavy. There was this, like, really, like, heavy message about, you know, like, we're all the same and we shouldn't fight and all that shit. The second movie is just an adventure film. Like, just a magical... RPG adventure, full of cliches, but it's so well done. Like, this is a really well-made movie.
Oh, of course.
To a shocking degree.
The first one was full of cliches, too.
Yeah, but I mean, this one is, like, there's no thematic depth to this movie whatsoever. There's no moment
But
that's
there doesn't need to be.
No.
Especially in a Pokemon movie.
No, I mean, it's shocking that the first one had so much.
Yeah, it felt really, like, out of touch with what Pokemon was and, like, what it appealed to children so much.
I think with the first movie, what they were going for is, like, it's a film, so we're gonna make it, like
it's deep.
Serious.
It has to
deep.
be.
Yeah, it's gonna be
intense.
like, oh, it's gonna be a fucking theatrical experience. It's gonna be dark and shit like that. And then with the second movie, they were like, okay, well, like, you know, that's not really what Pokemon's about. It's about an adventure and about cool Pokemon shit. So this movie, in spite of ultimately being even darker in premise, it's not presented in a dark way.
No.
But it's just a really fun adventure movie. But before we really get into and really both the Pikachu short and the movie itself are both like much more adventure focused, I would say. Whereas the first film was small in scope. They basically travel to this one island, and as we said, it takes place in like 3 rooms for a big bulk of the movie. This one, while it's still in a relatively small area in that it takes place in like this one little quadrant of the world. Yeah,
it's in the Orange Islands.
Yeah, but it's across these 4 specific islands basically.
But still, they each have their own personality. Like they're in a giant open space, and even when they're in like that guy's what would you even call that?
Airship.
That contraption.
I would call it an airship.
Definitely an airship. It's amazing.
Yeah, but this one's more focused on like, you know, moving constantly from place to place. It feels like an adventure movie. It's incredibly well paced, whereas the first movie kind of starts off a little adventurous and then it really like stops in one place and has this dramatic narrative. This movie is always on the move, very brisk in its progression. But to start with the Pikachu short, I would say Pikachu's rescue adventure, compared to the Vacation short, I'd say it's not as good as that one.
Definitely not.
Not with by a long shot.
The Vacation, it's constant fun.
Yeah, the Vacation movie, every second of it, something was happening. This one is more slow-paced. It's not really...
It's not character-driven at all.
No.
It's more just like, oh, we're in this scenario.
It's mostly about cool Pokemon. Backgrounds and showing off a lot of Pokemon.
Yeah.
Basically,
it kind of felt like they were just trying to shove as many Pokemon in our face as they possibly could.
There are an obscene amount of Pokemon in this short. It starts off basically Ash, Misty, and Tracy, who, by the way, Tracy, for anyone who doesn't remember him, was the guy in the Orange Islands. I think it's possible that Tracy was like single-handedly responsible for ending a lot of people's interest in Pokemon.
You think so?
Because I think... Well, not just him, but like the Orange Islands in general.
Yeah, I think a better decision would have just been to go to Johto. Yeah. To leave out the Orange Islands, because
I'm not entirely sure what caused it. I don't know if it's just that the next generation of games wasn't out yet.
Yeah, I think they didn't, because all they did was do the gyms, like, especially with Hoenn and like the past that. Yeah. They spend a lot of time like loitering and like they just take forever versus the Indigo League was very short. It only was like 100 episodes, I think. Yeah,
and Orange Islands is probably another 40 or so, but it's only 4 gyms, and like it was just weird because you know, if you're watching the Pokemon anime and you're like when the Pokemon phenomenon was going on, you know, in the late 90s, it's like you had the games and the anime paralleling each other, and you know, Ash is on this adventure that you kind of played in the games, and you kind of have this expectation that he's gonna beat the Pokemon League, because as far as we know, that's the end of the story, is the Pokemon League. Yeah. But then Ash loses the Pokemon League, and then the story kind of loses momentum at that point, because it's like, well, what does he do now? Where does he go now that he's lost the Pokemon League?
And they don't have any kind of game to base what's going on.
So then they introduced this whole new area called the Orange Islands, which is not in the game, so it was kind of weird and confusing, because it's like, what is this place? Like, we don't know how big it is, how long are they going to be here, like, what kind of Pokemon are here, because we're in between gens. So, like, they have Gen 2 stuff starts showing up, but, like, I don't know, it was awkward. And then they replace Brock with this guy, Tracy, who has no personality whatsoever.
Poor Tracy. Tracy gets too much hate. He's just a normie.
Yeah, he's just some guy. Like... Well, it's just that we were all used to Brock.
Yeah, Brock
He's one of the strongest characters in the show.
For sure.
And they replace him with a guy who has nothing.
It's like taking Meowth out.
Yeah, well, I'd say Meowth is even stronger than Brock as a character, but like, it definitely suffered, and it was weird, and it kind of, I think that's kind of what killed, I mean, obviously part of it was kids, we were all growing up, we weren't as invested, I mean, I was into Pokemon way longer than anyone else I knew in school.
Yeah, same.
I was getting bullied for even liking Pokemon by the time we were in the Orange Islands. But for me, it was like, we've lost the plot here. What is going on? But in spite of that, Pokemon 2000 is an awesome movie set in the Orange Islands and with Tracy. And I loved it even as a kid. But by the time we got to like the Johto leagues, I had kind of like stopped paying attention. Like, I didn't watch much of Pokemon Johto because, I don't know, the time slot changed, or I started middle school and, like, it wasn't on the right time for me or something.
I watched all of Johto, but I stopped at Hoenn. I'm a little bit younger than you, so...
Is Hoenn the third one?
Yeah, Gen 3.
So that would be Advanced. Pokemon Advanced.
I don't... Dude.
Advanced generation. But, like, only as an adult did I, like, find out that everything up through Johto does have kind of a character arc that continues to make sense. Like, the reason Ash loses a Pokemon League is that he can't tame his Charizard. And in Orange Islands is where he finally becomes friends with the Charizard. He becomes a better trainer, so that when he goes to Johto, he's much more, like, learned and able to, like, you know, take on the Pokemon League with less arrogance and, you know, and like actually succeed. He doesn't win though, right?
He doesn't win, but he does a lot better.
Yeah.
And he definitely has improved.
And Gary has lost his ego after his loss in the Pokemon
he
League.
kind of like neutralizes a lot. Like they become sort of friends.
So there's definitely intrigue all the way up through Johto, but like I don't think a lot of people my age got that far. Certainly not me. But anyways, that's just to set the backdrop for Pokemon 2000 and why Tracy's there. Tracy has like one real line in this whole movie.
Yeah.
Which is where Misty and the new character Melody are talking about, like, Misty's basically saying, oh, he's not my boyfriend, about Ash. And Tracy goes, you guys talking about me? And it's the only real line he has.
Yeah, that's all movie. I remember him saying. I don't think he said anything else.
Yeah, I can't remember anything. It's a good line.
His role is just shut up and look pretty, but he's not pretty.
So anyway,
shut up and be the
we're getting ahead of ourselves. In the Pokemon Rescue Adventure, Ash, Misty, and Tracy pass out, and all their Pokemon are sitting around, and Togepi just kind of rolls downhill.
Togepi needs constant supervision, guys. Yeah.
So Togepi rolls down a hill and falls into, him and Meowth fall into this, like, tree. Like, it's a really magical start to this adventure. Like, there's just like a husk of a tree, like a hollowed out tree bark that they fall into, and it just is a hole that goes into nothing.
It's to China.
And the Pokemon all fall into the hole with him because Psyduck knocks them all in like a dumbass. And we've got Venonat and Meryl, which are Tracy's Pokemon that I had completely fucking forgotten about. I did not remember what his Pokemon were at all. So they fall down this tunnel, and it's like playing this this boy band song.
I love this song
by O-Town.
It's the best part.
It's pretty good. It's not a bad boy band song.
It's great.
But it is like the epitome of a boy band song.
Yeah.
It's got the synth bass chord progression. They all like the kind of dark, sexy sound. Rescue, get there in a hurry. Rescue, baby, don't you worry. That sound.
Yes.
I'll rescue you, and if I do, you gotta rescue me. It's a solid time.
Yeah.
And then
I got a lot of enjoyment out of that sequence. And they're just falling.
Yeah, they're just falling through this tunnel, and it just kind of empties out into this enormous like gorge, like this canyon, I guess, with a huge fucking tree. This tree is so big that it is individually an entire ecosystem of Pokemon. Like, it's basically a fucking world tree. It's Yggdrasil out in the middle of this canyon. And again, this particular short film has a really interesting like color palette and background art that's not the same as the show.
No, it's not. I think it's supposed to be like whimsical and another world.
Which I would even say that the Pikachu's Vacation wasn't the same palette as the normal show either. It kind of looked more summery.
It was very poppy.
Yeah.
Like
but
pop art.
This one's way different. This one's going for like more of a Ghibli, like Nazca of the Valley of the Wind
vibes.
Look. Yeah. All these really detailed backgrounds that it really drinks in as it goes, which is the best part of this short.
It's aesthetically amazing.
So the Pokemon all show up at this place, and they're kind of just looking for Togepi. And really, like you said, it's about showing off a lot of Pokemon. Like, they're just walking around, and Pokemon are there. There's this one sequence that's pretty interesting where it's just a bunch of cells of just like basically like branches with like a Pokemon on them, and they're just kind of sliding the cells over each other, if you know what I mean. Like, it's hard to describe. Like, transparent, if you know how cell animation works.
Layers of
they're just moving a bunch of layers.
Yeah, the layers are like one will go like to the right and one will go to the left, and we'll zoom into one layer and one's going diagonal, and they just
which is like not an uncommon trick, but it's that it goes on for so long of just like peeling all these animation layers over each other.
It was pretty impressive.
Yeah, it looks neat. And then eventually they find Togepi in somewhere in this tree, which is again awesome looking backgrounds. But Togepi is in an execute batch. The execute are missing one of their eggs, and they've mistaken Togepi for it. And this is the best sequence. Adorable. Yeah, is them like following Togepi around and being like taking him as their comrade. Is the best sequences in these are when it's just like. Because, again, there's no dialogue. This one doesn't even have the Pokedex explaining shit like the first one
there's no narration.
This one has no dialogue whatsoever.
Except for the trainers, like, at the very beginning when you see their silhouette. They're like, oh, we're going to take a nap.
Right. Everything is communicated through either the Pokemon talking and gesturing or just, like, facial expressions. And that just the scene of trying to establish for us that Togepi has been taken in as part of the Execute family is really adorable and fun and whimsical, and the closest it felt to the previous short. Man, every time I watch one of these, like, I've come to realize all of my favorite episodes of Pokemon are the ones where it's just the Pokemon.
Yeah.
Like the Island of Giant Pokemon, a bunch of stuff in the later seasons that they do, like stuff like this. And it makes me think, like, man, I would love a version of the Pokemon anime that was just this.
Yeah.
Like, just Pokemon in nature. Just like an Animal Planet of Pokemon or something. Like... Because, you know, I don't feel like I need the human element, because the Pokemon are just basically dumb people, as I said before. So, like, we've got just this fun, cute, Looney Tune kind of thing going on.
Yeah, it's really interesting how they interact with each other, and you can explore a lot of scenarios with that. I think they definitely, like, missed an opportunity to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
The Mystery Dungeon had like a short. Did you ever see those?
No, I never saw the anime shorts.
They're pretty cool. They had them on a Cartoon Network, I think.
I'd like to watch them. They had the did you ever see the Winter Vacation OVAs?
I don't think I ever got to see them.
It was a series of VHS tapes that they put out that was like it was like they would just be like in a lodge in the winter, and it was like the Pokemon hanging out. I know there was one during the Johto era, because I remember an episode that was just about Chikorita being like pissed off at Pikachu and dicking around with him and stuff.
That's so cute.
But yeah, so but even though I love these inherently, like all the you know, Pokemon hanging out shorts, this one, again, it doesn't play as much to the strengths of just cute moments and fun animation. It's more focused on just, like, walking through these backgrounds and showing off, like, just gobs. There's probably, like, 100 Pokemon in this 20-minute short.
Easily.
Yeah.
Easily.
Like,
I'd say there's more.
Yeah? More than 100?
Not like different species, but like individual Pokemon.
Yeah, that I'd probably bet.
I doubt there's more than 100 like species.
Yeah. But so okay, they find Togepi with the Executes, and then they're like, well, I guess we got to go find the last egg. And then the film kind of meanders again. I guess what makes this one weaker for me is just the fact that it is like so meandering. It doesn't really keep up with like the plot. It's like they kind of wander around for a while, and then they just stumble on Togepi, and then they go back to wandering around for a while, and they stumble into this grove where there's all these Blossom and Gloom and Vileplume, and they do this cool dance sequence. Mm-hmm. It's just like a Blossom song. It's almost like a Disney song sequence where like they'd just be in some place and like all the animals would start singing.
Yeah.
You know, like Under the Sea or something like that. Well, I guess that one's more relevant to the plot, but like, but yeah, it's just like a random dance sequence with blossoms, and it's pretty cool. And then they move on. You know, like the sequence literally ends when Pikachu just kind of like realizes, oh shit, we have something to be doing, and they leave.
Yeah.
But then, so they go back, they're just kind of hanging out in the tree, and then, like, a giant storm starts, and everything's getting blown away. And so all the Pokemon have to band together to try to, like, they're basically trying to save these Execute nests that are getting blown away in the storm. And they're all, like, you know, just, like, trying to rescue them.
Yeah.
And a Snorlax plays a major role, because
Snorlax plays a major role, I think, in all the Pikachu shorts. And all the ones I can remember.
All he did in the other one was fall on them at one point.
Yeah, but I mean, he was in it. He was the biggest guy. I
wouldn't call that a major role.
He was the biggest guy.
So, yeah, Snorlax, like, pulls everybody in. Snorlax is adorable in this short.
Yes.
But, like, the way that this scene is portrayed is kind of doesn't make any sense. Because, like, there's a part where the Togepi bundle is flying away, and Pikachu runs to grab it, and he gets blown away too. So they form a giant line of Pokemon all grabbing onto each other, but they're all getting blown away. But the Snorlax grabs them, and he's pulling in the line of Pokemon. But as he pulls them in, they just kind of land, and they're fine. And I'm like, wouldn't they still be getting blown away? Like, what changed about, like, the state of their being that they are now not getting blown away just because
Snorlax is blocking the wind.
But they're not standing in front of him like they were earlier.
That's the logic they would give you, though.
Yeah. And there's also just a weird moment where Snorlax gets distracted by these apples that are flying by, but he's not eating them. He's just pushing them along. Yeah. It's fucking hilarious. It's hilarious. But eventually... No, there is a really cool sequence where Pikachu and Elekid are deflecting lightning bolts.
That's badass.
Yeah, the storm is shooting lightning bolts at the tree, and they are literally just shooting lightning at the lightning and deflecting it, which I had no idea they could do, and it's really cool.
They just hold hands, and, like, their electric powers improve.
So there's a couple of strong moments in this, and, like, the artwork is good again, but, like, it just feels so much less tight and fucking well-focused than Pikachu's Vacation.
It was a little boring at the parts where they're not, like, trying to show off as many Pokemon as they can. It's just, like, it's too whimsical. It's, like, a good bedtime thing to watch.
Yeah, but too short to be that at the same time. It's only 20 minutes. So, yeah, I would say this one for me is probably, like, a 6 out of 10. I didn't feel too strongly about it. Like, it was enjoyable, but
I would probably give it a 7 out of 10 just because it did a lot of interesting, like, artistic techniques, and it was really pretty to look at, but it wasn't something that I'd go back to.
No, I mean, I would return to Pikachu's Vacation over and over again. Oh my god,
it's beautiful. It's always going to be a fun time.
And now I'm really curious, because, like, I remember as a kid enjoying Rescue Adventure just as much, if not more, mostly because I love Snorlax, and I loved the big tree location and all that. Like, I have a strong affinity for big tree locations. Yeah. I don't know if that started with this movie. Like, it's possible this was the first one. But, like, one of my favorite things in any, like, RPG or, you know, like, adventure story is when there's, like, a village in the trees or just, like, walking on the roots of a giant tree kind of thing. So, you know, I love the backgrounds of this, but the story's not that great. So, yeah. Of course, eventually the storm clears up. It turns out some Chansey comes over and is like, hey, I've got the Execute. It's just in my pouch. And Execute evolves into Exeggutor, and the Pokemon go home. Yeah. So, yeah. Resolution's pretty simple. But then we get into the movie, Pokemon 2000. And, again, this movie is really kind of better in every way than the first one, other than themes. Like, which to some people might be the only thing that matters. Like, you could argue that the first movie is better because it has deeper themes and more emotions.
The first movie is a better blockbuster hit, I think.
What do you mean by that?
I think
the second movie's a better blockbuster hit.
I think the second movie is a stronger movie. It's a stronger, like...
Define blockbuster hit. Because when I think blockbuster, I think big adventure movie.
When I say blockbuster, I mean a movie people will, like, go to see in the theater. Like, parents will take their children to see.
I mean, it was because it was the first one.
Yeah, for sure. I just think
I think the first movie felt like a TV movie. You know?
Yeah, I can see that.
Like, the first movie, just because it's so short and to the point, and it's so, like, one location, and even though it does have some impressive animation, like, it doesn't compare to the animation of 2000. Like, Pokemon 2000 felt like the first movie was testing the waters, and the second movie was like, we're gonna go all the fuck out. Maybe because the first movie was so successful.
Yeah, you know? I think that's why. The first movie, I thought of a better way to say what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
The first movie is like a Michael Bay movie.
I don't see how that...
You don't?
No, because Michael Bay movies are big and expensive.
I think that movie, they put a lot of money into that movie.
Not as much as the second one, though.
You don't think so?
No, Pokemon 2000 had way the fuck more animation in it.
I don't know.
I would say they might have put more money into the American release of the first movie.
For sure.
Like, putting more pop songs in it, more, like, relevant artists and shit like that. But, like, the second one is, like, the animation's fucking amazing in the second movie. The first movie has, you know, again, it's, like, 2 locations, there's not, like, constant camera movement and stuff. The amount of background animation in Pokemon 2000 is, like, insane. And background animation's the hardest to do. Like, it's harder to do than normal animation. And, like, fuck, like, there's probably 10 minutes of it in this movie, you know? So I definitely think the second one's more expensive. And, I mean, the newer movies are also expensive. Like, I think the Pokemon movies have constantly escalated in, like, animation quality. And I think that's because, again, that the first one sold so well. Like, I think with the first one, they were testing the waters. Because we talked about how the TV show is ugly at the time.
Yeah.
You know, the TV show was not pretty to look at. And the movie was. Everything was on model, at least. And there were moments of impressive animation. But the second movie is like, this is now a franchise that gets the star treatment. This is a franchise that we know will pull in big dollars, so we have to make it, like, good and, like, something that really draws you to the theater, is how I felt anyways. Yeah. It kind of reminds me of, like, the way that the One Piece movies were. Like, the early One Piece movies were all, like, felt like extended episodes of the TV show, and they're all, like, 50 minutes long. And then once you get to the fourth one, they suddenly become movies because they were really successful. And by the time you get to, like, the 10th, they're, like, the best-selling movies in Japan, and, like, they have tons of animation budget. So, you know, I felt that escalation happening here. But, yeah, like, this movie is just much more structured as a film. Like, the Mewtwo movie, first of all, the first 20 minutes is, like, just backstory. And, like, is, like, completely cut off. They spend most of the money, like,
setting up the villain.
Yeah.
And in the second movie, the villain is, like, a very minor...
Yeah.
It's just to set things in motion.
Yeah, the villain in the second movie is definitely not as strong of a character as Mewtwo, but I really like his placement in the story.
Yeah, he doesn't, like, overshadow the Pokemon or, like, the characters or, like, the legendary Pokemon, you know?
I would even compare him in some ways to, like, a Ghibli villain. Like, the villains from Castle in the Sky, or something where he's basically just a greedy fuck.
Yeah.
Like, there's not much more to him other than that, like, he's extremely driven to get what he wants, and he doesn't really care about the consequences of that. And he's not, like, maniacal or, like, out for destruction or anything. He just kind of wants what he wants.
Yeah.
And fuck everybody else. And he's just, like, an obscenely rich guy with the power to do that. But, yeah, he's not much depth to him as a character. But, that's fine, because the real, like, villains, in a way, are the birds. The giant birds, you know? Because they're the ones who are gonna fuck the world.
Yeah.
It's interesting. The whole dynamic of this film is interesting. There's a lot going on, and all of it's couched in, like, magical, mystical shit. To a greater extent than normal in Pokemon, which Pokemon always has, like, magical, mystical shit, you know? There's, like, ghost Pokemon, there's legendaries, all of them have, like, weird abilities that, like, alter the nature of the world and stuff like that. But, in this movie, there's literally a prophecy that if you fuck with these 3 birds... There's a fire bird, the ice bird, and the electric bird, and they each have their own island in the middle of the Orange Islands, and they keep the balance of the sea. For where, like, all of the ocean originates from this place, and if the balance of these 3 is fucked with, they will get really pissed off and fight each other, and that will destroy the world. And the only thing that can stop them is the Chosen One, as assisted by Lugia. Who will emerge when the fighting gets really bad. And the Chosen One just happens to be Ash by pure luck and circumstances.
Yeah.
And, like, it's not like there's no, like, trick here. There's no, like, twist. It's like he just is the Chosen One. Like, Ash just happens to be the guy who can save the world as prophesized, and he does.
Will turn to
you know?
Ash.
Like, this movie just... It's everything is just predestined. There's no, like, choice or consequence in this. It's like literally what the prophecy is what happens. And the prophecy involves Ash collecting 3 orbs from these 3 islands, putting them on a pedestal, and then that's it. Like, it's not that he has to resolve the conflict through, like, dialogue or someone learning a lesson or anything like that. It just straight up is, grab these 3 orbs and put them here, and the world will be fine. You know, it's a very old school, like, Final Fantasy 1 or, like, Final Fantasy Legend of the Crystals kind of story. Like, gather the shit and you win. But, like, you almost don't realize it's that from, like, the beginning.
No.
You know, like, it goes into it very well. The pacing of this movie is so fucking on point. It starts with the characters just on a boat to this island, because it's just one of the orange islands.
They're just cruising around.
Yeah, they're just going to this island because that's what they do in this arc of the show, is go to islands, which also makes it feel very One Piece to me. Maybe that's why because that sprang to my mind early into the movie. Like, the idea of just sailing to an island and there's a story there is, like, what all the One Piece movies are about. But, so they sail to this island just because... And it so happens that this island has a tradition where every year they put on this big ceremony to select a chosen one. And they have the chosen one go to the 3 islands, collect the artifacts, and put them in this thing, and it's just, like, for show. Because they've never had it actually mean something.
Yeah.
You know? So I guess, like, if this happens every year, then, like, you could imagine that... whatever year this happened, that guy would have been the chosen one. But then the legend specifically name drops Ash. So maybe it was always going to happen at this exact time. Maybe they've just been doing this every year in preparation for when it was actually real, and none of them, like, realized that, you know, like, because they just think of it as a gimmick. Like, it's very clearly a casual thing, which I love.
Yeah,
I love that it's portrayed that way.
It's just their town celebration.
Yeah,
like, that's what draws in tourists. That's what their island is all about.
It's literally just a fun festival that they do that, like, no one really takes seriously, but they think it's really cool, so, like, why not? Because it's a chance for everybody to party and drink. They sell stuff all over town. Yeah, what a genius presentation. Like, imagine how much shittier it would have been if it had been like they really believed.
Yeah, they were really
legend,
serious about it. Like, it wouldn't feel real at that point.
Like the woman from the first movie who is just the storm that emerges. Do you think that
woman was in canon was from this island?
I don't know, man, because it is a similar legend.
Yeah,
they both involve a giant storm. But the woman from the first movie took it completely seriously.
Yeah.
And no one in the town in this movie actually thinks it's real. They just do it because it's fun. And so when they land on the island, we are introduced to this movie's...
heroine.
Yeah, I guess I'd call her a heroine.
Definitely.
She's one of the best one-off characters in any of these.
Oh my gosh. Her, like, outfit, how we're introduced to her, is so fucking cute. Like... she's so sassy.
It's this young girl named Melody who's going to be doing... She's going to be the sort of priestess of the festival.
Yeah, it's her first year doing it. Her big sister has always been, like, the priestess.
And you can tell that the big sister's, like, you know, a village girl, lived here her whole life. She, like, you know, enjoys doing it as tradition. The younger sister, the funny thing is, and this is why she's such a good character. Like, I really love the character of Melody because... she acts like this is all lame and beneath her. Like, when we are introduced to her, she's dressed up in, like, kind of, you know, I guess not really punk clothes, but she's just dressed
really
normal.
Trendy, you know?
Yeah, trendy. That's a good word.
She has, like, fucking
she dresses
really cool...
like you do.
I know.
I really thought of you when she was introduced.
She has, like, these cool sunglasses on and, like, this cool hat and, like... really cool capris, and like she just looks comfortable and sassy, and she's awesome.
She's giving them attitude about this festival, but like what continually becomes apparent throughout this movie is that she does like it. She likes that she gets to do it. She likes being the center of attention.
Oh, of course.
And I don't think she's hiding that. Like, she's not being dishonest by being sassy. She just is sassy.
Yeah, she's a little sister character.
Yeah.
And she's great.
And that's what makes her work for me. Like, I think she would have sucked if she, like, legitimately thought the festival was dumb. You know, if she was just like, you old people in your festival, well, I guess I'll do it because you're making me. No, she clearly is, like, way into the festival. She just has an attitude about it where...
She's a really well thought out character.
Yeah. You know what? I was thinking about this in the movie, and this is me reading definitely too deep into it. That, like, because the stipulation, the reason she's taking over for her big sister is because the big sister's too old at this point. And I was thinking, for this to be age-based, it's obvious that it's supposed to be, like, a virgin is the, like, maiden, you know? Yeah. Like, a virgin maiden. So, like, the idea is that she's, like, this girl who's, like, you really think I'm, like, a virgin, you know? Like, that's kind of the vibe I get from her. Because she's immediately flirty. Like, that's her main, like, the main part of her character is that right when she shows up, she sees Ash, and everyone hears that he's a Pokemon trainer, and, like, basically, if a Pokemon trainer comes to the island during this, then they are the chosen one for this festival. So she comes up, and she's like, oh, kind of a cute chosen one here. Like, it's very clear that she's flirting with Ash specifically to fuck with Misty.
She's great.
And she does this throughout the movie. And it really made me think of her as, like, yeah, she's very, like, open and, like, not shy about flirting and talking to boys. And so, like, she's kind of the opposite of a virgin maiden stereotype, you know? So, like, I wonder if that's what they were going for on some level.
Maybe. Now that you, like, mention that.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see, like, what the dialogue would have been like in the Japanese version.
I doubt it would have been any more obvious, but I could see this being the mindset of the guy writing it.
Yeah.
You know? Like, thinking of it that way, but not really putting that in the movie, like, directly. But, I don't know. Just kind of felt that way to me. So anyway... yeah, she's this cool, trendy girl who, you know, she plays it off like, oh, of course I'm going to do the festival because I've watched you do it 1,000 times. I know how it goes. But then when we actually get to the festival, it's like she knows what the fuck she's doing. Yeah,
she comes out in her outfit and she's like parading around. Beautiful.
She's in this gorgeous outfit. She looks incredible. Yes. She's doing this awesome dance and playing this like gorgeous, soulful song on the thing, and it's like, okay, she knows exactly what she's doing. So she comes over and she gives the whole legend speech to Ash that he like tells him what he needs to do in like poetic speak, and he's like, "What?" And then she like kind of breaks into her normal character, and like I just love her dialogue. I love all the dialogue in this movie. This movie is full of zingers. Like there's lots of just really fun jokes in here. There's like one-liners that are super memorable. The best one being a part where Team Rocket says like basically they're observing like Misty and Ash having like a little gay back and forth, and Jesse's like, you know, you should be careful with the opposite sex, and Meowth says, you two don't need the opposite sex because you've got each other. They're both like, what does that mean? Which is such a perfect line for them because like they are kind of like a weird agender characters. Like, both of them really flip-flop on gender roles all the time.
Yeah, like, James is always, like, cross-dressing. So is Jesse.
Yeah, they both cross-dress all the time, but then they'll also play up their own gender sometimes. Yeah. I guess they're gender fluid, both of them.
They're very flamboyant.
The other day I was trying to think about, like, could I imagine either of them even, like, having sex? And I can't, because I don't know what position they'd be in.
In one of the manga, I think it's the Electric Tale of Pikachu, they get married and they have a fucking baby.
That's in the shoujo manga.
Yeah, oh, is it?
I think so.
Maybe.
That is the Electric Tale of Pikachu, right?
No, Electric Tale of Pikachu is the one with the big tits.
Big tits.
There's like a bath scene with all the characters in it. And Misty's like naked.
And she has big tits?
Yeah.
Whoa. It might be that one. I don't remember. I thought it was from the shoujo one, but I don't even know if they're in that one.
I don't know if the shoujo one even follows the main characters.
No, it's about a cute girl. I have the first issue of the shoujo.
I have one of them.
But anyway. Oh god. Fuck. So yeah, they do this prophecy thing, and in the meantime we're getting like cutaways of this dude who's in this like the very opening of the film rather, which we kind of skipped over. But I wanted to, you know, start us off on familiar ground. The movie opens with this guy in this giant CG airship that looks completely impractical. Like, I don't know how this thing flies. It's sort of like a steampunk
very steampunk
design, but then also it's got all this like super computer technology on the inside.
He's a rich boy. He's gonna have like an iPhone.
I wonder if it was that he designed it to be aesthetic more so than...
He definitely seems like the type who would...
Yeah, because like the inside of this ship, when we see it in more detail, like this guy collects rare shit.
Yeah.
And the ceiling of his ship...
the fucking Michelangelo
Yeah, it is the... I don't think it's like actually that one, but it's definitely supposed to look like the Sistine Chapel fucking ceiling.
And he has like artifacts all over the ship that are just like protected by force fields.
Yeah, which is a really cool detail. But he's on a mission to capture Lugia. And the way you capture Lugia is by, if you capture all of the 3 mystical birds, it will send the world into such chaos that Lugia will be summoned. So at the beginning, he captures Moltres, which this dude does this very easily. Like, he has no trouble capturing the island, mystical birds.
Throw some ice balls at it, Moltres comes out.
The only reason this guy doesn't win is because it takes him too long and too much other shit interferes. Which I will say... One thing that is confusing about this movie is the time frame, because if you look at it from that guy's perspective, it seems like he should have been able to catch all 3 of them in the span of 20 minutes. Because the islands are pretty close together. It does not take the characters long to get from one island to the next. He's in a ship that's bigger than the islands themselves, and he captures them in like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So like... even though the movie opens with him capturing Moltres, and then we also have a cutaway scene where it's Professor Oak and Ash's mom experiencing all these rapid climate changes, which are the results of him having captured Moltres. The actual storm only hits Ash and friends once they're already on their way to the first island. So it's kind of implied that that's all happening at the same time. Mm-hmm. Interesting detail, if that is the case, that it's daytime where Ash's mom and Professor Oak are, but it's nighttime when he catches Moltres and when the storm started on Orange Island, so they might be on the other side of the world. Because, it would be time zone differences.
That's really crazy.
Yeah.
But, the way that, Ash's mom, like, confronts Ash at the end of the movie made it seem like they were really far away, and they had to get there by helicopter, so...
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess it's like a pretty good distance between them. Interesting cinematography. Like, if they actually thought about, like, oh, all this stuff's happening at night, but this scene will be during the day because it's on the other side of the world. Like, if they actually thought about that, good fucking job there.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's supposed to, like, Ash's mom in the Kanto region is supposed to be Japan. Like, where do you think... The Orange Islands are.
I would have just thought they would be like the Pacific Islands, like the Philippines or something, like down there. So not in a different time zone at all. But
no.
Maybe they're meant to be out by Hawaii. I mean, but that's what the new Aloha. Yeah. I mean, not that Pokemon World is mapped like the real world, anyways.
You don't think so?
Not. I don't think it's like the same.
I don't know.
Also, isn't Johto supposed to be Japan?
Johto and Kanto are connected.
That's true. But you have to take a boat to get from one to the other.
No, it's just like there's a mountain pass and like a little bit of water between them, but they might be just like 2 separate islands, but they're right next to each other. I thought
you had to take the SS Sand to get...
No, and in Pokemon Gold and Silver, like once you beat the Elite
Four, you just go through that little passage. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the intentions are. But I've never thought of the Pokemon world as like actually being geographically similar to our world.
I think all of the Pokemon regions are like based off of real places.
They are based on real places. I just don't think of them as being in those. Like if you look at a map of the X and Y place, which I have a fucking poster of, like, it doesn't look like France.
No.
So I don't think it's like where France is in relationship to the other places. Anyway, point being that the time span between him capturing Moltres and him capturing Zapdos is confusing. Like, I don't think it's impossible that it was like just the same 10 minutes that like took between the storm starting and Ash getting to the Zapdos Island, but or no, because he goes to the Fire Island and then Zapdos shows up there and that's where he gets caught. So I guess it could have happened in the same amount of time, but, like, I don't know. It feels like he could have done it a lot faster.
I think that, like, catching those Pokemon require a lot of setup. Like, he would have to change, like, what kind of element is coming out of his ship and...
Possible.
Like, make sure he has all the instruments together. I think, like, he can't just hop from one island and expect to catch the other one instantly. Like,
you might be right.
The actual capture is going to be fast, but he had to, like... He had to get the ice balls, and he had to, like, get whatever weird capturing devices.
He's the only crew member on his ship. I would assume a lot of that's done automatically.
Yeah.
But, there's also these hilarious sequences with him where he's got this, like, diagram of, like, blocks that he looks at. These, like, holographic blocks. And it'll show, like, a map of the 3 islands, or, like, it'll show the, like, each of the birds and stuff. And, like...
And where they are, but they're just on their
own island. It's so simplistic that there is no need whatsoever for this thing this guy's looking at.
He's an extravagant guy.
He is an extravagant guy, I'll give you that.
Of course he'd have.
He's just like, he's got this like extreme hologram setup to tell him like this rudimentary information that he could easily keep up with. It's totally unnecessary, but it is entertaining to look at.
Yeah.
And this movie has, we should mention... lots of CG and 2D integration that works shockingly well. I would say the airship looks pretty cool.
In most scenes. Sometimes it looks a little janky, like next to the characters. Like when the airship is crashed on the ground.
That's the only moment that I thought...
It's like kind of jarring to look at. But like, it usually like looks very natural.
I mean, they do a good job of usually showing it just around other background details. It rarely do you see... the full CG ship alongside 2D characters. But, like, even when you do, like, there's a scene of Zapdos and Moltres flying around the thing, like, blowing up parts of it. And, like, they're in 2D, and the explosions happening on the ship are in 2D. But, like, I never noticed the difference. Like, it never stood out to me. Like, I didn't even really think about the fact that it was 2D and 3D combined until the part with the characters... escaping the ship when it crashes, which is when we commented on it. Like, oh, hey, now that I think about it, this is good CG and 2D integration. And, like, the fact that it took me that long to even realize that
you were looking at something in CG, it's amazing.
Yeah, so it's really impressive for the year 2000.
Yeah, because that's, like, I think when they really started integrating, like, 3D CG into anime in itself. And I think that's a really great starting point. Right. The only problem is, like, as a kid seeing that... I just kind of expected all, like, CG to be up to that level.
Yeah.
And it's, like, whenever I see shit like Muv-Luv, and I see the fucking monsters in Muv-Luv, and I'm just like, oh my god. How have we not gotten any better?
Muv-Luv the anime series,
yes,
to clarify.
And the sequel thing, the
Schwarzmarken.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah, it looked really bad.
Oh, that was like painful to look at. It gave me a stomach ache.
So, all right. Continuing the plot, we've got a guy who's caught Moltres.
I'm so hot.
He's on his way to get the next guy, and like, so again, at this point, we know this prophecy, and that Ash is the chosen one, and he's got to go do this shit. But like. At this point in the movie, this movie has a great building of mystery and suspense. Because at first, things are just kind of like the weather's getting weird. And none of the humans on Earth really understand it. But the Pokemon are all freaking out. Like, Pokemon are starting this mass migration towards the Orange Islands because they sense that something's fucked. And they're, like, trying to do anything they can to fix it. So the Pokemon are all mass migrating towards there. And, like, Ash's Pikachu is, like, freaking out. And, like, Pikachu seems to, like, think... Like, he hears the prophecy, and he's like, hey, this seems real to me. You know, like, everyone else is like, yeah, I'm gonna be the chosen one. Pikachu's like, no, we need to do this now. You know, so Pikachu, like, takes Ash's hat and runs out to the boat. Like, get the fuck on this boat and start picking up these artifacts, because I think this might be legit. So as they're sailing, the weather gets serious, and then we get some fucking high-octane boat action. As mentioned before, there's a lot of background animation in this movie, especially with water.
Oh yeah, the water is beautiful.
Tons of cool water effects, because like this whole movie is like persistently during a storm, and so the sea is going apeshit, and there's lots of scenes of boats doing action
crazy boat shit.
Yeah, like so Ash's ship, which is guided by the boat. What is a boat pilot called? Captain. The captain girl who got them to the island in the first place. It's just her, Ash, and Pikachu. They crash. The rudder breaks off the boat, and their boat gets fucked. Meanwhile, Melody, Misty, and Tracy have decided to follow them to make sure they're okay.
What happens to the captain girl? Like, after the boat crashes, what does she do? She just fucks off.
Yeah, she's not really...
She's just eating her chips and drinking her tea.
I think she just kind of sits around with her boat. I don't know. She doesn't have enough dialogue for me to remember where she is throughout the movie. But, like... Because, like, when they first took off, the storm hadn't really started yet. And so the storm kicks in while they're on their way. Melody feels bad because she feels like it's because she chose Ash and now he's out there in the storm. She feels like, oh, shit, it's my fault he's out there.
Yeah.
So her, Misty, and Tracy. And this whole movie, there's this weird undercurrent of, like, Misty is in love with Ash. And I'm really wondering if that was in the original Japanese.
I don't think to that extent.
Yeah, because they're really playing it up in this movie. And, like, because when I was a kid, I was always under the impression that Misty likes Ash because of a song on the soundtrack.
Yeah.
I want to tell you how I'm feeling, but I don't know how to start. I wanna tell you that I'm not afraid that you might break my heart. Oh, why should anything so easy ever be so hard to do? I wanna tell you that I feel... No, I don't remember the...
Something.
Say that I love you, which is used extensively in the phenomenal video My Japanese Anime's Pokemon. But anyways, that song was on the soundtrack of the original show. And it gives you the, like, it's very clearly, it's called, like, Misty's Song. Like, it's a song about Misty being in love with Ash. And, like, you could interpret her as a tsundere character, like, throughout the show. But from what I've been told... by, I think, Tamashi Hiroka brought this up in a video, that in the Japanese version of Pokemon, there is never really a suggestion that Misty's in love with Ash. You know, like, that was never something... So, like, for us, Americans, we were always waiting for them to get together.
Yeah.
It was like a will they, won't they thing. And Pokemon 2000 really turns the screws on that by, like, having Melody constantly tease Misty about being in love with Ash. And there's a dramatic moment at the end where she's like, he'll never really be alone because he has me, and she goes and saves him. And it's like, okay, that seems like they're really buttering us up for that, though it doesn't really make much progress in this movie.
No.
So I'm wondering if maybe the dialogue was just less extreme in the Japanese
I think that's probably the case. There's, like, the way Misty reacts, like, visually, you can kind of see how... It could just be like, oh, she's just teasing Misty because she's there.
I mean, the fact that Misty's getting offended by this teasing, like, I don't necessarily think that, like, in Japanese, I don't think that would automatically mean she likes Ash. You know, just the fact that she's getting riled up, like, by this other girl flirting with him. You know, she might be possessive of him, but not necessarily in love with him, whereas
her
this movie kind of suggests that she is.
Kind of in general, just... She's really stubborn and, like, kind of insecure, and she gets overworked. I mean,
she gets mad at Brock for flirting with other girls, too. Like, it's just kind of the way she is. And I'm not sure why, but, like, that's just...
She's
just her personality.
Misty.
But, so, yeah, in this movie, they're really playing up this idea that Misty's, like, in love with Ash, but it doesn't really go anywhere other than that there's a scene where she rescues him. But anyway... So Melody is piloting, and I'm using the word piloting on purpose this time, this boat. Like, surfing these fucking tidal waves and shit.
It's so crazy.
And they like, get beached on a rock, and she opens up the sail and, like, flies the boat. And she's doing this by, like, she has these, like, levers that she's just, like, pulling on.
That's how real sails work.
Really? That looked fucking insane.
They have, like, the two handles, and you can, like... angle where the sail is going.
Well, she's using it to fly.
Well, yeah, it's fucking dope.
And they fly it, like, up the stairs of this thing. All the locations look really cool in this movie. And it's really well directed. There's lots of good cuts. I love every time they get to one of the mystic shrines, there'll be a moment where like we see the shrine and the music kind of cuts out and like all the sound, because this is a pretty loud movie. There's a lot happening. But when we get to a mystic shrine, it'll be like, and like, oh, there's the shrine. And like there's just like a silent scene of Ash like retrieving it from the thing, and like it feels again very like RPG, Final Fantasy adventure. Like they captured that feeling of mysticalness of going to this cool place and grabbing this orb and it's like glowing and shit. But I think what was the strongest thing about this movie is that you can easily imagine, like what the journey is meant to be, as described in the legend, is Ash will just go to each island and get the orb. The movie realizes that would be boring, and has the way that they get to each island be spiced up a lot. So the first one was just this shipwreck on the island, the Fire Island. At this point, we still haven't really, like, seen the magical birds and all that. Like, all we see is that there's stormy seas a-brewing.
This is a bad idea.
Yeah. So Ash grabs the Firestone, and then this is where Zapdos comes down. And this is a pretty awesome scene. I love the way that Zapdos is portrayed as like just this angry bird.
Angry territorial.
This is the real Angry Birds movie. Yeah, he's just territorial is a good word, and specifically the way that they chose to have him communicate, because there's often times in Pokemon where Pokemon will just, you know, they say their names at each other, but they can all understand each other, and Meowth will often interpret what's being said. In this movie, Pikachu just communicates with Zapdos by way of they just shoot electricity at each other.
Yeah.
But Zapdos is like, you know, kind of, even though he's just talking to Pikachu, he mean-spiritedly shoots him with too much electricity, knocking him back, like, just talking to him. Like, it's a great show of power, of, like, how strong this bird is, that even, like, just fucking talking to it is, like, painful. And so Zapdos lands on the Fire Island, and he, like, magnetizes it, and he's like, this is mine now, I'm taking over, like, electricity's gonna rule the world. And so this is where we see that the balance of power, if you break the balance of power, the birds just go insane.
Yeah, they just want to take over everything.
Yeah, they become the fucking assholes. They just want the world. So, yeah, it's a pretty solid scene. And I like that all the characters kind of get in one place, and we've got this, like, you know, this feeling of, like, here's where the movie's gonna start moving. And then the bad guy comes down in his airship, and he pretty easily saps all of Zapdos' power, catches him, but accidentally catches our heroes in the process. And really, when I think about, like, the actual adventure in this movie, it happens pretty quick. The movie cuts away a lot to other stuff. Like, it'll cut away to Professor Oak, and Ash's mom, like, in a chopper flying in. It'll cut away to, like, show all the Pokemon coming to the land.
It'll cut away to show Team Rocket.
Team Rocket doing something. Like, the actual adventure part happens, like, it's just, like, 5 or 6 things happen.
Yeah, they go to the first island, then they go to the Ice Island, or what was it, the Fire Island?
They Fire Island first, then they get captured by the guy,
they go
and
on
land
the fucking
on the
airship,
other one,
and that's about it.
And then they go to the So, like, they get captured by the bad guy, and I don't remember what Team Rocket's doing at this point. Like, they do something else. They're not in the airship. They're not captured, right?
Yeah, they are. They're captured.
Oh yeah, you're right, because they try to use Weezing to break
and Arbok.
Yeah. So everybody's captured by the rich guy, and this is where we learn, like, what his deal is, which is just simply that he's a collector. And I really think this guy works amazingly well for having as little dialogue as he does. Because even though he's not much of a character, like, his whole personality is
he's a collector.
I want Lugia. Like, I started my collection with a Mew card, which is literally the Mew promo card, which I love that detail.
It's such a good shout out.
Yeah. He started his collection with a rare Mew card, and now he's built it up to all this shit. And he wants the ultimate treasure, which is Lugia. And, like, but what makes him memorable is simply his airship. Like, the airship is what I think of when I think, what is the villain of Pokemon 2000? I mean, think about the guy
him alone is
it.
powerless. Like, he's just greedy.
He's got a cool voice.
He does have a cool
voice acting is way more on point in this movie.
For sure.
Yeah.
There's no, like, just stupid accents that are of, like, a character.
Weird,
it's just
out-of-place accents. Like, Melody sounds good. She's well acted. The bad guy sounds... Everybody sounds good. There's not a single voice in this movie that makes me cringe.
Because they don't have a lot of unnecessary, like, characters.
Yeah. And they just hired better people,
I guess.
Like, even, I love Slowking's voice.
Slowking's great.
Slowking is such a weird character in this movie because he's established early on, like, he's just waiting on the final island. Like, he is there to fulfill this prophecy, and he understands everything that's going on. And he can talk because he's psychic. And he's like, I think he's the smartest Pokemon, right? I think that's, like, in the lore of Slowking, is that he's, like, extremely intelligent.
I don't know if he's
more
smarter
so
than Alakazam, but he's definitely smarter than
Alakazam can't even talk.
Alakazam, his like IQ is like 1,000,000.
Is that true?
Yeah, it was in the Pokemon guidebook.
I see. Well, in any case, Slowking knows what's up, and he's just waiting on the island. And he really just has like a couple of like random comic relief lines, and like in the plot, his main dialogue is like, "Put the stones in that." Like, that's basically all he says to Ash. He doesn't say much, but he's a really endearing character in spite of it, just because he's such a like weird, like, he's just a Pokemon that can talk, and he's there, and like no one really questions it.
He's super lovable.
Very lovable. So all right, they're on the airship. Zapdos and Moltres have been captured, and they meet the guy, and he's trying to go after Articuno. So they all are like trying to break out Moltres and Zapdos. They break them out, and we get a fucking great sequence of the birds just ripping shit across this ship.
Oh yeah.
Like, they just blow up everything, and it looks really cool and vicious. Like, the birds in this movie are savage. And like, we criticized the legendary bird designs pretty harshly in our Pokemon design thing, but this movie justifies them.
I don't think you're that mean to the legendary birds.
We were not kind to them.
Oh, yeah.
We gave them like 2 and 3s kind of thing, but like, the way they're portrayed in this movie, like the way the animation, especially the effects work, like all of the effects work in this movie is awesome, and there's a ton of it. Water effects everywhere, lightning effects everywhere, fire and ice, obviously. All of it looks really good. This is kind of a Sakuga Marvel of a movie in a way. Like, I don't know. It doesn't have any sequences that are gonna like stick with you for the rest of your life, I don't think. But all of it looks really cool. So, like, they blow up this airship, and it just kind of crashes on the Lightning Island. And I love the way that the airship literally crashes on the shrine and destroys it, and the ball, like, rolls to Ash's hand. Like, this is the kind of variety you need in one of these kinds of stories. Like, I think one of the most boring parts of Final Fantasy X is that you would go to the shrines to collect the orbs, and you would just do a puzzle every time, and it was the same thing. And like, they just kept getting harder, and it was just like, oh, we're doing this thing again.
No variety, it's just a template.
Like, this movie, even though he's only collecting 3 orbs, like, it's so important that the traveling to the second orb was in this airship. Like, you don't even really know that they're going to that island. Like, they only kind of change course there because Articuno's heading that way to claim it, and then the ship gets crashed, and it breaks the thing, and it lands in his hand, and it's like, it's not the same event as before. So, there's not a feeling of repetition that you would get from if he just went to all 3 islands.
Which is needed for the movie.
Yeah. Are you passing out?
I'm a little tired, but I'm not passing out. I'm sorry.
Anyway.
I was just thinking about what the movie would be like if they just had to go to each island and do the same sequence of reaching in and grabbing the orb. Then traveling to the next island and grabbing the orb. And that would make me fall asleep.
Yep. But instead, it's this high-flying adventure where you never quite know where it's going next. I mean, in spite of how many times I've seen this movie, it still actually surprised me at times. Like, I had forgotten the exact way that it goes, and I was like, wow, that was neat. You know? So, yeah, they're on Ice Island. How do they get to the shrine again?
On Ice Island?
How do they get from Ice Island back to the shrine? Do they use another boat? What do they do?
Ice Island, the 3rd island, right?
No, they're on. No, I mean Lightning. They're on Lightning Island.
Yeah, they're like. How do they get to Ice Island?
How do they get back to the shrine? Like where they put the orbs? Because he then places the 2 orbs, before they go to Ice Island. So I don't remember how they get to that island, where the shrine is.
That's a good question. I thought that I kind of don't remember. I thought that was on the second island.
No, the second island the Lightning one. The ship crash lands. They get the orb. Do they just take another boat to it? Because everybody goes. It's like, well,
they must take a boat.
No, they do. There's another boat, and Team Rocket takes the thing out of the back, and they abscond. Team Rocket takes. There's another boat that is not broken. This is where, okay, now I know what happened to the green-haired girl.
Yeah.
She stayed on Fire Island and fixed her boat. Then she takes her boat to the Lightning Island and meets them there. Then they all get in her boat and go to the shrine.
Yeah, okay.
And in the process, Team Rocket takes the life raft boat and they fuck off with that, for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. They end up landing somewhere else. So the main characters, they make it to the shrine, they meet Slowking, and Ash places the 2 stones, which has a really cool sequence where you can see each island through the
That's
back.
really awesome.
Again, they just capture that adventure feeling so well.
They really do.
And the
everything is just placed
is really
perfectly.
Great in this movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, he puts in the 2 stones, and at this point, all 3 birds are free, and they're just fighting. The 3 birds just are fucking around. They're just beating the shit out of each other. They're all trying to light everything on fire, or freeze it, or zap it. And so the world's a clusterfuck. Storms are everywhere. All the Pokemon in the world have shown up. They're all here to try to do something. They can't do anything. They're just here
in case they're needed.
Which is the only kind of close to a thematic thing in this movie. The only kind of resonant moment is where Slowking explains to Ash each of them felt that if they could do anything, it would be worth it to come, so they all came, and he's basically inspiring Ash that if you should go, or was it Lugia who says that? Was it Slowking or Lugia?
No, Slowking does.
Okay. Yeah, and then they're basically telling Ash yeah, you're the chosen one, because they all kind of realize, because the entire plot of this movie is based on a fucking pun, because the legend is
worlds will turn to ash.
I don't remember exactly how it goes. It's disturb not the 3 whatevers.
3 elemental birds.
Or else they'll clash. And then the whatever will rise to stop them, but will fail, and the earth will turn to ash. So yeah, everyone thinks that the legend means the world is going to turn into ash, when what they really mean is it will turn to Ash Ketchum, literally. Which is fucking hilarious. So yeah, they fucking the birds are all fighting and shit, and then Lugia comes out of the fucking ocean, and he's like, "I'm Lugia, I'm cool," and
That's exactly what he sounds like.
Yeah. So Lugia goes and is fighting the 3 birds, and basically gets his ass kicked.
He's not that strong.
No, I mean he's putting up a good fight, but he's fighting 3 of them, and they pretty much pulverize his ass.
They're in beast mode.
But then Melody realizes that the sound that Lugia makes is the same as the melody that she's been playing for this ritual. So she plays the song, and Lugia, who at this point had not spoken yet, but after she plays the song, he comes out and he goes, The song has restored my strength. I am Lugia. I sound like Jesus Christ. That's my vision of what Jesus would sound like. Is Lugia's voice. Oh God, what does he actually sound like? There's some character he reminds me of. I want to say a Power Rangers thing or something, but not Zordon. I don't know. But Lugia has this very calming voice. So he comes out and he's like, all right, let's go to the fucking Ice Island and get the last orb. Ash, you're the chosen one. Let's fucking do this. He gives Ash a little pep talk. So then Ash takes some scrap metal from one of the boats and has Charizard and Squirtle and Bulbasaur tied to ropes, and they're
sled dogs.
Yeah, they're sledding him.
The funniest thing is Ash is struggling, he's falling into the snow.
Yeah.
And he decides to use Squirtle and Bulbasaur.
Yeah. He could have just used Charizard. There was really no need.
Squirtle and Bulbasaur can't be that fast.
No.
It looked hysterical.
They were running as fast as Charizard was flying. There's only one sequence in this movie I don't care for, and it's this part. Like, up until this point...
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, like, the pacing is really tight throughout this movie. All of it kind of makes sense, but there's just this weird moment of... Lugia is just, like, fighting off the birds in the air, while Ash is just trying to, like, run across the ice ocean.
I just don't get why Ash wouldn't just fly on Charizard.
Yeah, I don't know why he didn't just fly on Charizard or fly on Lugia, because he will do that later.
Yeah.
When he makes his way back, he flies on Lugia. So, like, and just the fact that he, like, goes alone, I don't know, everything about this scene feels awkward. It's a really weird sequence of Ash...
I just want to know who thought of this. Who thought that this would be a good idea?
I get that they wanted to have him do, like, a sledding thing. Like, it's a neat thought, but... it would make way more sense for Charizard for him to ride on it.
Yeah.
And, like, he ends up, like, the ice breaks as he's going up it, and he has to resummon Charizard. I guess, really, it was a setup for Team Rocket to come in, which is actually good. So, Team Rocket, they, having watched, are watching all this transpire, and they're talking about how, like, man, Ash always gets to be the hero. Why don't we be the hero for once? And then they basically rig this broken piece of a helicopter to their life raft, and because the helicopter that Oak and Ash's mom are in crashes on the Shrine Island. Yeah, and Professor Ivy, who's just there. So
Professor Ivy has the worst voice in the entire movie.
Yeah. So Team Rocket on their speedboat shows up, and they grab Ash, and they're heading to the island, and they're explaining, they're like, you know, we decided to be good guys because, like, the entire fucking world is at stake, so that kind of matters to us too, and we're gonna help you. So I actually do like that. I just don't like the means by which we got to that sequence. Like, I kind of wish it happened sooner, like they had just immediately had this way of getting Ash there, as opposed to this weird fucking sequence of him on Charizard and Squirtle and Bulbasaur. But so Team Rocket gets him to the island, which is a cool sequence. He gets the last orb, and then he on the way back he just rides on Lugia, which makes way more sense and should have happened in the first place. Because it's, I think, a way that this could have made sense. Because, like, Lugia is fighting off the other birds from the sky while Ash is on the ground. So that kind of justifies it. Like, maybe Ash couldn't ride on Lugia because he was too busy fighting. But then when he flies back, he's still fighting them. Like, they're still blasting Lugia and shit as he's flying back. I think it would have made more sense if, when Ash gets the orb, we see Lugia, like, defeating the birds. Like, he knocks them off his back for a second or something, and then flies back, and it seems like smooth sailing until he gets hit by the bad guy, which is what happens. So, they're dodging all these attacks from the birds. I think he does actually damage the birds in this sequence.
Yeah, because they're on the ground.
Yeah, he, like, kind of knocks them out in this journey back, which he should have done just beforehand. It all would have been justified, but instead it's just weird.
Yeah.
But he's dodging all these attacks. He's flying Ash back. The birds get knocked out, and then they're about to make it when the crashed airship boy shoots out his doohickeys and latches onto Lugia. And it's timed really well, because they set up that he was getting ready to do this. Like, right when Ash is fulfilling the prophecy and everything, they show him, like, my prize awaits. And then you kind of forget about him, so then when he shoots Lugia with the shit, you're like, oh, fuck, I forgot that guy is still around, you know? So he gets Lugia, and Lugia, granted, Lugia immediately bursts out of this, but he uses all his power in doing so, because he shoots a bunch of these super hyper beams that look awesome. It looks like some Godzilla fire breath shit. And he, like, wrecks everything and falls into the ocean with Ash on his back. And Lugia's like, I have failed.
I know.
And then Ash is floating on the surface with Pikachu, and Misty, you know, has this dialogue with Melody that her, like, he's with me, and, like, then she swims out and saves him. Now, in this sequence, I wanted to make mention of something that I think is probably persistent throughout Pokemon, but I only noticed it, like, I was reminded of it in this movie, which is Pikachu's dialogue. Because Pikachu may only be saying Pikachu all the time, but he does say names in there. Mm-hmm. And for instance, whenever he refers to Togepi, he says PPP, like, which is his way of saying Togepi. And like in the Pikachu's Rescue short, it's very clear that he's saying that. Yeah, like he'll point at him and say PPP, you know, like he says it a few times. When he refers to Ash, he says Pikapi, which in Japanese would be Satoshi, because that's Ash's Japanese name. This is why you wouldn't catch on to this watching the American version, because it wouldn't make any sense. Why does he always call him Pikapi? And I'd have to watch enough of the show in Japanese to like know, like to confirm if that's consistent. But it definitely seemed that way in the movie. Like when he's screaming over Ash's, like trying to wake him up, he says Pikapi. And then there's also a scene where when Misty's swimming out, he sees her and he says like a 2-syllable, like what seems to be her name. Pika. Yeah, he's like, Pika! Like, oh, it's Misty. I just really like this detail.
I know.
I like that Pikachu is like speaking a language.
I hope that's like consistent.
I think it is. Because I know that PPP is. Like, even in the TV show, he always refers to Togepi as PPP. So, yeah, I think he's basically speaking Japanese, but in Pikachu's. Again, shout out to Otani Ikue, the greatest voice actress of all time. She's been voicing a fucking Pikachu for 20 fucking years.
That's incredible.
And doing an amazing job of it. And she's a great voice actress in general. But anyways, so yeah, they rescue Ash out of the ocean. And then basically, he puts the last stone in the thing, Melody plays the song, and the Earth is fucking restored. Yay. Like, I kind of love that. Like, again, there is no, like, oh, the mystical birds had to learn something. The bad guy doesn't have to learn something. There's not, like, the literal plot of this movie is Ash is the chosen one, and if he puts the fucking orbs in the thing, the world works again. So she plays this pretty song, and like this green liquid comes out of the shrine, and like these pillars are lighting up to the melody that she's playing, like, and then the liquid washes over the earth, and all the fucking ice goes away, and the birds calm the fuck down, and Lugia comes out, and he's like, I'm alive, and there's this big CG Quicksilver rainbow thing. Yeah. That's weird and cool. And, yeah, everything's fixed. All the Pokemon go home. The weather stops being fucky. And, like, yeah, that's what it was. Like, you know, that's how you fix the mystical bird problem. Like, they're a bunch of assholes unless you play this song, and then they remember that they're not assholes, and they go back home. And that's how the magic works.
Yeah, they gotta go back to their island.
It's just a fantasy adventure plot. And, I mean, the sequence is awesome. And there's something we haven't mentioned. I've been talking about how great the animation is, but the real selling point of this movie is the fucking music.
Oh my gosh,
the music is awesome in this movie. Mm-hmm. There's the recurring Lugia melody, the doo-doo.
Super memorable. It's so simple, but it's like, that will stick with you.
This song, when she plays it the first time to wake up Lugia, like, I started whistling along to it just naturally.
Yeah.
I haven't seen this movie in 15 fucking years. Maybe 10, at least 10 years.
Yeah.
And, like, I immediately remembered
Me
this
too.
melody. Like, it's that good and catchy and, like, memorable. And then when she plays it at the end and it, like, evolves into the whole band sequence, it's just magical, epic. And throughout the whole movie, there are songs that are just, like, awesome, like these magical adventure Final Fantasy sounding songs with like just booming sinister undercurrents.
On that weird
and shit.
Sledding scene, they had a really cool
like techno song out of nowhere. Yeah, like it's definitely not afraid to be eclectic. Like for all the gigantic epic film score music in the movie, there's also like a 90s techno song. And I don't think there's any pop songs in the actual movie itself.
I don't think so.
I don't think there are. There's like a bunch in the credits, but none in the actual movie, which is good.
Except for the opening, like
Yeah, the opening theme.
Which we were wrong in the first podcast one, because you were saying they're all battles.
I was right. Well, no, it's not a battle. You're right about that.
It's not a battle.
There's no battle. It's just him hanging out with his Pokemon. But I was right that it plays
the Orange Island song.
It's a whole new world we live in.
That's Pokemon Johto.
Oh, never mind. It's we all live in a Pokemon world. Pokemon, I wanna be the greatest master of them all.
Greatest master.
We all live, in a Pokemon world. But not sung that way, because it's another, like, weird pop cover of the OP.
It's sung that way.
Yeah, it's pretty it's more similar than the first movies, which felt like totally an alien version of the song.
Because I'm so familiar with the original, like, opening song, and I was having trouble, like, figuring out how that guy was gonna sing.
That song is way too iconic.
But this one we could sing along to.
Yeah.
Sort of okay.
But yeah, so the movie ends with this, like, the world is saved, everything's put back to normal, and then fucking this gorgeous ending sequence, and then, like, they go to the credits, and it plays, "The power of one begins with believing. It starts in the heart and flows through the soul and changes the world. Imagine how life would be if we stand in unity. Each of us holds the key." Anyway, it's "The Power of One," a song that's actually relevant to the plot of the movie, and was quoted by Herman Cain on his political fucking run for president.
Herman Cain is great.
What a fucking amazing man. I believe these words came from the Pokemon movie. "Life can be a challenge. It's never easy when there's so much on the line. But you and I can make a difference. Just look inside and you will find the Pokemon movie." If you've never heard the song Pokemon by Neil Cicierega, I highly recommend listening to that song, which has the speech in it. But yeah, great. It's a fun song. I like that song. It's over the top and corny as shit, but it's a good
it's a great credit song.
Yeah, good credit song. And then it's followed by Polkamon by Weird Al, which is like a polka rap, but it's a polka. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
So I had the soundtrack for this movie, which has a lot more songs on it. And one that is highly relevant to the movie, it's the fucking B-52s literally describing the plot of the film. And, like, the song is basically the legend, but, like, they add a lot onto it. And, yeah, it's the B-52s singing, "Oh, chosen one, you are the chosen one." Such a cool song. A weird fucking song.
I want to listen to that album when I go to bed.
Yeah,
just play
definitely. So yeah, that's Pokemon 2000. I would give this movie, I want to say, a light 8 out of 10. What do you think?
I was also going to give it an 8.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I feel like, because we gave the first one a 7, and I feel like the first movie was not super strong as a movie, but strong in, like, the aesthetic and the backstory, cool characters, a cool message to it, and some great animation moments. Mm-hmm. This one is an amazing movie with awesome production values, great soundtrack, great animation, Melody's a really great character, the birds are cool as shit, Lugia's cool, the flying contraption is cool, but there's no real depth to it, and, like, it doesn't have as much, I don't know, I feel like it doesn't reach my heart the same way the first one does, but I still enjoyed it more. Like, it's just so fun to watch, and so well directed and timed and everything, and the soundtrack is really that good.
Yeah. So
yeah, I give it an 8 out of 10. You have any parting thoughts on Pokemon 2000?
I can't wait to fucking watch the next one.
Your favorite one.
Oh my gosh. I don't know if it will stand up. I haven't seen it in like several years, but I have faith.
I just want to point out that this is the second night in a row we've done one of these podcasts, and it's the second time that you've started off the podcast sitting up and ended it completely laying in my lap, like literally sleeping under my arm.
We have different like
far away from the microphone.
Our living schedules are now out of whack.
I just think it's really funny because like I just keep going on and you just kind of let me take over. I feel really bad
because like in this one I definitely didn't contribute as much, but you are very connected with this movie.
Like, I am. I'm expecting you to take over on the next movie.
Oh, for sure.
Like,
for sure.
I definitely feel more strongly to Pokemon 2000 because it's like, this, again, it was my favorite one. And like, you know, I've you know how I am about favorites. Like,
I know.
About things that something having been considered a favorite by me is like, means it was a milestone event in my life. It was something that I gave a lot of thought to.
Yeah,
and, like,
for sure.
You know, cared about very strongly. And 2000 was my favorite. And like, I do really like the third movie, but I will probably not have nearly as much to say about it as you will.
Yeah.
Because it's your favorite. And you're similar. You don't have a lot of favorites, but when you do,
oh God,
there is a depth of caring. So, yeah. Look forward to that in the next episode, next week, which for you, but for us, it's like a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
See you then.
Peace out.